Are you updating your website? I might have some thoughts for you that could save you some headaches. Let's talk about backups and how, yes, there's the technical kind, but there's also the kind that can save you time and your sanity and maybe even your website layout. I'm Appy from My Code Happy, and whether you have a Wix website, Squarespace, Shopify, WordPress, I have some tips that I think will save you that headache a little bit. So number one is to figure out what you need for your platform. So I promised, besides techie, there's another option. Sometimes you do need techie though. And if you're a WordPress person, WordPress.org does need the techie backups. Let me diverge just a second. You have a functional backup where if you update something, if you have a WordPress.org website, you update WordPress, the software, or a plugin, other things, sometimes your website breaks. You need a complete backup of your website that you can restore so that you can get your website back in the event that something catastrophic happens to it. Let's talk about the other side for Shopify, Squarespace, Wix. Chances of something catastrophic happening, like an app update breaking your website, is a lot less. So you don't have to worry about the same kind of full backup like a WordPress.org person needs to. Some of those platforms do have rollback features or undo features where if you want to go back to a different version of your website, you can. And that's great unless you've made 12 edits and you only want to get rid of the 12th one back, but not the other 11 that you made. And in that case, especially if it's just a visual thing, then having a different kind of backup can be really helpful and save you a lot of frustration. Ask me how I know, because I've done it. So first of all, knowing whether you need the functional backup or a visual reference, just in case, that's the first thing to figure out. The second part of this is, what are those visual things? If you are going to keep some kind of visual reference, then what do you save to make sure that you have this reference that you can use as you're updating your site or your pages? So what am I talking about? Making a visual reference. What do I need to do? What do I need to save? There's 3 things I'm going to suggest. The first one is screenshots, full-length screenshots, desktop and mobile. Mobile's pretty critical. If you can't do anything else, you can take a series of screenshots down the page and make sure you capture the whole thing. Those full-length screenshots are pretty useful in being able to tell, as you're editing a page, what was the spacing like? How big were the fonts on the page? What was the letter spacing? Where did the lines break? What was the spacing between the graphics? What was showing in the graphics? There's a lot of different things to pay attention to in that design, and having that available to visually see and reference as you're updating the design to whatever you're going to change it to can be super helpful. I personally use those kinds of things all the time. Anytime I'm going to update a client's website or my own, I take those screenshots, and it really helps to make sure that as I'm editing things that I know where I'm coming from so that I can make sure where I'm going is where I want to go and make sure it matches the rest of the website and that kind of thing. So which pages should you screenshot if you are taking this first part of this visual reference? The major pages, your home, about, contact, services. At least if you have products, at least one product page so you can see the layout and the format. If you have a collections page, at least one page that shows you an example of what that looks like. If you have a blog, then at least one blog post and the blog page itself with the list of posts so that you can see what those layouts looked like, so that you know what you want to keep and what you want to go to. The second thing that you want to make sure you have a record of is your brand guide. Some people have a formal brand guide, and maybe they've had somebody do their branding and they have a formal guide. They have fonts, sizes for headings and body, and very specific spacing, layout, graphics, logo, different forms of the logo for dark or light backgrounds. You have all the colors in hex codes and maybe in other formats. You can get really formal with this. You can also have a list of hex codes stashed somewhere that helps the minute that you're trying to remember what the other section on the other page, what exact color that was. And I use this list, like I said, all the time. I have one for myself. I have it for all of my clients. And I am constantly checking to see what that color was, what the code was, so that I am making sure that I stay on brand and I use that exact color. So that's the second part. The third thing that I keep track of is copy, the content. It can be as simple as going to your homepage and clicking save to PDF, check and see what that looks like, because you can't always read all the words. Maybe you just copy all of the content and paste it into a document, put in the sections, enough notes to make sure that you know exactly what it says. Also do that for the major pages, again, so that you have a record of what your website said. Maybe you change it and then you wish you had a record so that you know what that phrase was that you used last time when you wrote this section on your website before. Again, you want to do the major pages, so home, about, contact, and your services, products, and blog posts, and collections pages. That can get to be a lot. So if you have a lot of content that's not backed up anywhere else, you'll have to make a judgment call. What are the most visited blog posts or the most important ones that you want to save? I would recommend having a copy of those somewhere else, but also maybe if you have 1,000 blog posts, you're not necessarily going to sit down and copy and paste all of those out. If your website has the tools, you may be able to export the content of your website in a format, maybe XML. I know, kind of techie sounding, but in some kind of a text-based format. It's not necessarily going to be like you pulling it up in a Word document and reading it, but you might at least have some form of a backup in case it's needed, where you can import it to somewhere else. So that's something to check into. I am a huge just in case person. So is this overkill? Likely. Are there times that I am really glad that I have had a backup? Like I said, I personally use my visual reference and my hex code list all the time. But some of the other things, the copies of your content, a lot of that's just in case, but they're not a bad idea to have. So what's the third piece? The third piece is, how often do you have to do this before you do anything new, before you change anything, if you want a visual reference, and before you make big edits or add major functionality pieces to your website? Other than that, to your comfort level. Obviously, the more you change things, maybe the more frequently you want to have a record of what is changing and how that goes. Hopefully that saves you a little bit of time and frustration the next time you go to update your website. If you found this helpful and you'd like to keep going, I have something for you. It is a when to update your website checklist. So fits right in with updates and backups like we've been talking about. You can print it out and check things off as you work on things for your own website. So you're welcome to download that. You get my weekly newsletter, free website tips every week. And thank you again for watching. Come back and see me next time. We're going to start doing demos where I share my screen and you can watch me do website things. So if that sounds interesting, subscribe, stop back by, and I'd love to see you again. Thanks.